Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm a food fan on Instagram and on Twitter and can't remember what else.
And this is episode 75. Hello, Jacob. You just came back from a trip, and I just came back from a trip. So, how are your travels?
Yeah, it occurred to me that I hadn't even left Tokyo, the metropolitan area since the pandemic started. I've been the furthest away from home I've been has been Yokohama, right? So I hadn't been traveling much. But yeah, I went back home to Scandinavia, which was nice, except for the actual flight, because normally when you fly from Japan to Scandinavia, the flight path is a little bit over northeast China, but then almost all of it is over Russia, right? You're flying good 8 hours over Russia, but for obvious reasons, you gotta avoid Russian airspace now. So the way you have to fly is from Japan, basically straight up, avoiding Russia all the way up to Alaska, and then once you get close to Alaska, you turn and fly over the Arctic, over the North Pole, and you touch Greenland, and then you go down to Scandinavia. So that's a good 14 hours and pretty exhausting.
Yeah, that's a real trip out there, and it's also one of the reasons why I'm trying to avoid going to Europe. I would really like to do a European show, um, sometime soon. Probably not this year though, that's one of the very reasons. It's like 20 hours now to get to Europe. And then the other reason being that most of the European shows are one-day shows. But going back must have felt good. I mean, it's the real winter there, right?
Yes, it's real winter. It's a bit of a bit of an energy crisis going on. So people are not turning up the heat as much as they did in the past. So it's twice as cold
Yeah.
for that reason. But yeah, it's also nice to be back and stocking up on salty licorice and Nordic keyboards. That's usually what I have to bring back to Japan.
Oh, Nordic keyboards, like, computer keyboards?
Yeah, so there's this special layout called ISO Nordic, and my brain is hardwired. I cannot use any other keyboard, so I have like a half dozen of them, but I use them up, so I need to stock up every few years.
Yeah, when I worked in the office, I also used to bring my own keyboard in, and then I would make the IT guys change the keyboard layout for me on my laptop because that's like sometimes on the work PCs that's a hard-coded thing. Like you can't change it without administrator uh, authority. So usually my first few days at a new job would be, back and forth fighting with the IT guys because they'd be like, "Oh, I don't know how to do it," because nobody else, ever has done it before or asked to do it. And then I have my keyboard, and of course, I go for the most annoying, clickiest ones. So yeah, in the office, all you hear is me going click, 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 click on my mechanical keyboard.
Yeah, I'm at work. That's fine because it's kind of noisy in general. I find that
Yep.
clicky keyboards blue keys are a bit controversial at home. I have my favorite keyboards are the blue switches. I am not allowed to use them at home.
Yeah, the boss, the HR won't let you.
Exactly, it's stricter rules at home.
Yep. Yeah, that's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Um, for me, I also came back from a different show, but I flew the other way, Jacob. I went to the California Pen Show. And this time, that was in LA. It used to be called the Los Angeles Pen Show, which was a very vintage show. But now it's rebranded, or not rebranded, but it's actually run by different people under the new name California Pen Show.
Just to make sure I understand, so is this really like a continuation of that show? I mean, is that old show no more, and this is just a new name, or is it possible that in the future you will have both of these shows?
Yeah, so the Los Angeles Pen Show, um, is owned. I mean, the name is owned by somebody else, so ostensibly, there may be a future iteration. This year they were not on, because I think they also felt burned, but but it is possible that they might run a show out of spite. Or I guess the California Pen Show was one like that. In a sense as well, to accommodate for what was really lacking at the previous Los Angeles Pen Show. Um, but this time it's run by Frank from Narwhal, and also from I think Mario. I'm not sure where he's really from, but I have to say this is a pretty well-run show. No complaints except for the first day, but it was a good time. And I want to talk about this because originally I wasn't planning on going to the show, but Style Art asked me, "Hey, are you going to the new Los Angeles Pen Show?" And they said they were thinking of going. I said, "No, I don't know about that. It's, US show. I've heard bad things about the older LA Pen Show. Um, but then when I was in Texas last November, just out of curiosity, I looked up the flights, and they were very cheap, Jacob. They were about $500 per person to go out there. And so, well, if it's $500, I have to go.
Right.
It would almost be a crime not to go. And so I did. And who did I see there but our good friend Inky Rocks.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. She went.
yeah.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice Greek place, Aliki's, thanks to some Pen Addict Slack suggestions. Um, and this time I also brought my nib working apprentice out there, Taku,
Mm.
and it was a good time. It was a good time. Definitely a lot of learning. Definitely not the same as the other shows. Each show has their own little personality, I suppose. But it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to going back. But one thing I noticed is that there isn't really a lot of um representation, let's say, of these Japanese brands or Japanese products. Um, And because the previous LA Pen Show was so vintage focused, there were a lot of vintage tables at this show. And a lot of the crowd, I think, were segmented into either the you know, really, really knowledgeable vintage guys who don't really care too much about modern pens, which I think is totally fine and totally fair. And then you have the people who are, kind of new to the fountain pen community. Maybe they've just gotten their first or second gold nib pen. And so um, a lot of the crowd, they would stop by the table because, I was one of the only tables selling really a lot of Japanese stuff. And unlike what I would say is the San Francisco Pen Show, a lot of people would stop by and they'd be like, "Wow, these pens are very pretty. They're shiny. Look, I didn't even know that Sailor made this purple Pro Gear. How much is it?" And, you tell them the price, and then they'd be like, "Oh wow, that's so expensive. That's like way beyond what I would ever purchase." Without realizing, that what they're looking at is like a Shishikura pen and, what that means. Um, so I think the market there will mature as the modern crowd matures over there. But it's really interesting, and no shade to them. I think it's really interesting how different communities are at different stages of their maturity, and also how they mature in different ways. How they mature in different ways.
But so I remember last year when you went to both that DC pen show and the
Yeah.
San Francisco pen show, you described the DC pen show to be very European focused as well as vintage focused, and although a lot of people came to your table, they didn't really understand what you were selling, and they didn't necessarily see the value in, as you said, like Shishikura pens because they didn't know what it was. While when you went to San Francisco, everyone knew what it was because that's the market, at least in the US, for those kinds of pens. And it's not. I mean, you can't really say that DC hasn't like matured. It's just that it has matured in a different way, right? So would it be would it be correct to say that this California pen show in its current form is more similar to the DC pen show?
Um, in a way, yeah, and we did have a lot of European vendors as well. But I think DC is a little bit different because DC is about double the size in terms of vendors versus the new California Pen Show. And the West Coast and the East Coast are very different because the East Coast has really small states. And so you have larger pockets of smaller communities. So, for example, the DC Metro crew, they are super on top of the the Japanese scene. And then you have people flying in from Baltimore or New York or wherever,
Hmm.
and each of those little communities will have a different level of expectation or a different level of understanding of what they want to see at the show. uh, I think the California Pen Show is interesting because you have the general Greater Los Angeles Pen um, Club, I suppose, Glam Pig. And then you have the just people who live in California, and California is a very large state, and the West Coast is generally more spread out, even in terms of population. We say Los Angeles, but Los Angeles is actually huge, so it's a lot of these people have never met each other before. They I would say are not as close as a community um, in Southern California. Whereas I think Northern California, where San Francisco is, Bay Area, they've got like more of a mature group that they meet every week or every 2 weeks um, going on. I think the crowd that we got this time, we had a lot of people from the local area. Not too many people um, flew in specifically for the show. So the hotel was actually an airport hotel, which was fantastic for us because we had free shuttles. But a lot of the locals were complaining that parking costs $50, which yeah is ridiculous.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the way that the crowd organizes itself is also very different. Um, so while I think there are some similarities between both DC and SF, uh, but I think the crowd. It might not be the crowd, it might be the layout. The
Hmm.
layout of the show meant that you had wider walkways, and it made it much more pleasant to be at the California Pen Show, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. But speaking of DC, I did look up flights just to see whether going would be a possibility. The organizers sent me an email, saying, we knew that you were really busy. Would you like to come back? But let's talk about these flight tickets, Jacob, because flying back to Europe, it must have been pretty expensive too, right? I mean, going to DC this year would cost me double of last year and be
Yeah.
about $3,000 a person.
Yeah, I mean, up until now, I have never been particularly motivated to learn about this whole thing about like flight miles and optimizing my points because I just haven't been flying enough to do that. But now the prices are so high that I'm starting to think that I need to get one of those like Japan Airlines mileage cards and try to optimize it so that I can get a more reasonable price next time. It's really expensive.
Yeah, and I mean, things are getting wild. I do hope that they'll die down, and um, I know that a lot of people in Japan have expressed to me that they want to get out to shows, and particularly the San Francisco Pen Show. So for example, somebody like Hiroko, we've got a lot of customers there. We always talk about it, and and it's a known quantity. There are more Japanese vendors there, for
Mm.
example. So for her, it's like the show to be at. Speaking of then, going back to the maturity of the market, I think it's also very important what kinds of vendors show up. If you have Japanese vendors show up to the San Francisco Pen Show, I'm sure, you know, shops like Bunga Box, right? Like their first year is probably not as successful as the year that just passed, their most recent year. So every time you go back to a show, you develop more of a connection with the community, and the community also learns more about your products.
Yeah, that's probably true. By the way, it's still a mystery to me how Toyoko Craft managed to bring all of those trays and chests over to San Francisco last time.
I asked him about that, and he said that he actually shipped most of them to a friend prior to the show, and then he filled his suitcase with the smaller trays. And he said still that wasn't enough. He said he brought 3 times as much as he did in 2019 last year, and it still sold out within the first, morning, right? So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I
it's
think that that's
wow.
the Brad Dowdy effect. Apparently, he bought one of those Toyota trays and talked about it on like some stream or something, and then
Yeah.
it exploded in popularity after that.
Yeah, I mean, last time he said he also sold out in a day, but this time obviously bring 3 times more. He thought he would be able to last 3 days more, right? But not to be the case. Not to be the case. All right, let's move on to some news topics. So we've been asking, what will Platinum do now that the Shunkei series is over? We see obviously Sailor is continuing their, bi-weekly releases. I do feel a little bit of Sailor burnout, but I think those special releases are important to keep, your fan base happy and to keep things interesting. Pilot has gone down the route of bringing back these swirly marble-esque materials in the SE. Uh, but Platinum has been slowing down for a while after their Shinkei series. The last two of their Shinkei series, I would say, are not the most successful. The Kinshu is still in many, many stores. The Shiun was not sold out for a long time. So the Shinkei series right off the coattails of the Rokka and the Kunpu.
Yeah, those two were the biggest hits right there, and you still to today you find this Kumpu on like America for like 80,000 yen. That seems to be the biggest hit of them all.
Yep. And so we were wondering, what's Platinum gonna do to kind of spice up their offerings. And last year they came out with this shape of heart, which I believe was rose gold trim with these little like things inside the finial that are, I believe, supposed to represent diamonds, and then inside is hidden two little hearts, and the hearts are the hearts that they cut out from the nib because the breather hole is still a heart, right? So it looks like their answer is to continue this. I thought it was like a one-off, but they've now released, or they showed this pen. They unveiled it in Germany at some writing conference, or like a stationery conference exhibition. The shape of heart ivory. So it's like a white-bodied version of that. What do you think?
I think there are a few interesting things there. First of all, I think Ivory it's a good choice. But I'm wondering if the the success of the most recent Wagner pen has anything to do with this, or if that's just a coincidence. That's my first thought. My second observation is that they are I'm not sure if this is meant to be kind of marketing or if they're being sort of honest about it, but they are apologizing that they can't make many of these because they're difficult to make. That's like the third line in the Instagram post. The third thing that I've always find so strange about this post from Platinum's official account is that they are saying you can go and buy this on the Pen Stars, which is it's like this small stores.jp store, which is sort of like a Shopify kind of like small store, which is definitely not on the same scale as Marzen or Itoyo or one of the big retailers. It always mysteries me why they promote these Pen Stars over the big box retailers.
Yeah. The Pen Stars, as you said, like they have a good social team in China, right? But the Pen Stars, it's yeah, they're not what I would call social media rock stars. And neither do they really. I don't think there's even a lot of communication within um them. Obviously they're a small company. They're the smallest of the three major pen manufacturers. We said before they're a private company, which I think is still very, very impressive. But they had a team that went to Germany and unveiled these products to, ostensibly the public. There was no communication about that release. There was no hype about that. And then when I walked into the store in Maruzen and I said, "Oh yeah, I saw that the next version is going to be white." And the sales lady for Platinum, the one that's, seconded from Platinum, she's like, "Wait, how did you know about that?" I was like, "Oh, well, it's on social media." Right? So, um,
That's so Platinum.
yeah. So it's really interesting, the way that there seems to be no real communication about that. About the pen itself, yeah, I think the white will appeal, but I don't think that this can be, Platinum's answer to the market. I think it's still it's cool, but for how long can you do the the shape of heart? I mean, you can do them in all of the different colors. Are you gonna stop experimenting with shapes and with designs? Uh, I think this is an intermediary step between the Shinkei and their maybe a new series. Shinkei, I think, worked really well because there was such a storytelling aspect to it as well, and people wanted to collect the series. Whereas I feel like the Shape of Heart, it's really like a very specific time. And not only that, we talked about this last year, but they missed the timing to release this pen again.
Yeah, that's true. That's a bit of a bummer.
Like they needed to announce this pen in January so they can sell in February. Or Christmas, right? I mean, I think this is a great Christmas pen. If you release this in November, people would be buying this up. But March? I don't know. I just feel like it's such a waste of that potential. And I feel really sad about that. So, hopefully we'll see something really, really new next year for the 3776, or maybe even this year in the summer. But I think we're still waiting for that answer.
Yeah, and we're also waiting for them to roll out the new nib on the more models. We were told that this is going to be the year when they roll out the new nib, and yeah, that hasn't happened yet. We know that Morizan has several platinum pens planned this year, so we'll see if any of those have the new nib. But yeah, this pen is a bit of a sort of safe bet, bit conservative, but I do think it's more appealing than the previous Shape of Heart.
Yeah, and I would buy this pen over the Kinshu, for example. But I think it's a nice pen with a boring story.
I think that's true. Yeah, you're right about that. That for each of the Shunke pens, there was a little bit like, what does this represent? Right, this is like the moonlight
Yeah.
over Fuji or something like that.
Yeah, and you got like this little card with it, you got an explanation. And they used to do other things as well. They did the lakes, the Great Lakes. That was pretty popular as well. So, I do wish they brought that back. The second thing that they're doing is this Matt Curidas. What do you think about the Curidas?
Well, so the mystery here to me is that I saw this originally on your favorite blog. I haven't seen it anywhere else. And I've been using like Google image search. I took that photo, I put it in Google image search, and the only thing I find are these insulin pens. Right? That's the closest match that Google can find on all the whole internet for these photos. I have not seen these Matt Curidas photos anywhere else.
Yeah, so these are a curiosity because and maybe we should ask the Maruzen people today because they might have some insight for us. But um we were just speaking about how they seem to have abandoned the Curidas project. But then yeah, you posted the image in your stationary group with this matte black, blue, and they say it's red, but it's really kind of like a pinkish shade, right? Magenta pinkish shade. It looks pretty legit, right? It's got numbers. It is a Curidas. Um, and
Wouldn't be surprised if you go to like Chinese social media and like Weibo or whatever, you're gonna find all the information you need about it. But if it were to leak somewhere, that may be it.
yeah, that's where it would get leaked, right? But while we were talking about how the Curidas wasn't the most successful model for them, it doesn't look like they've actually improved the the Curidas itself. Like, it doesn't look like this has any improvements over the original model.
Yeah, that's what we want to try to find out. Yeah, I mean, superficially it looks the same except for it being matte. But it will be interesting to hear if they have done anything to the feed in particular, and there was some problems with drying out as well, I believe. So if they have addressed the quality issues, then that would be very interesting. But yeah, people who would find the Curidas uncomfortable to hold because of that protrusion on the underside, they probably won't like the new model either. But it would be very interesting to hear what has changed. So I mean, because we said that the Curidas is sort of 70% there. If they bring it up to like 90%, that would be good.
Yeah, and the knock is still as long as ever. Um, and I think it's just a little bit for it's like longer than a 149, no? I mean the entire pen when it's unclicked. So we'll see if this is just a rumor or a reality. But if it is a reality, I'm interested to see if any improvements have been made or they're just releasing them in different colors and different materials.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Curidas and the Vanishing Point have a new challenger, right? A new challenger approaches, which is this made by Endless Creator pen.
Yeah, I saw that. It's been a lot of hype.
Yeah, so I think a few weeks ago they released on their Instagram this like teaser video of a new and cheap click or knock fountain pen, and it looks interesting. It looks a little bit, I mean, I feel like the what you pay is the quality that you get on this pen. I haven't seen it in person, but from pictures, that's what it looks like. But I'm curious how their mechanism differs from the others that are out there right now. So you have the pilot version, which Moonman has also copied, and then you have the Curidas, you have the Lamy ones, which are twist, and I think Stipula also did a twist one there.
You also have, and this is, I think, a bit hilarious, you have some Chinese clones of the Curidas that cost a fraction of what a Curidas costs, and apparently, based on reviews I've seen, works more reliably, works better than Cure does.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not surprised about that. I'm not surprised about that. Um, but I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this leads. And maybe it's just me. I'm not really a click fountain pen person, but we'll see if there's any evolution in the market segment as well, or if it's going to remain in that kind of sub 150 to 200 dollar mark. Because I think as you go up into the higher range, people want to have something more substantial. They want to have a bigger nib, for example. You know, is it possible to get a huge nib in a retractable fountain pen?
Yeah, yeah, I don't think that necessarily something people want. I mean, people paying a lot for some of the fancier capless limited editions. So I think that could work. But yeah, you want something with a bit more quality feel to it. Maybe they have a winner here. Looking at this endless pen, I think it looks stylish. The one thing that worries me a bit is that step down.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. But we'll see. Maybe we'll be able to get one one day, but we'll see about it. All right, next topic. We have some Sailor news. Sailor, um, they have started to market these Profit Juniors. So that's I forget what it's called in the West, but it's the steel nib, kind of a flat nibbed Sailor that you can customize at Ancora, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's called like Compass or something like that in the US.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sailor Compass. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have been kind of experimenting with this model a bit recently. So you remember like last year or maybe the year before they released that set with a Prophet Junior and three Studio 123 inks. It's just that the pen itself was pretty basic and the inks were just like red, green, and blue pretty much. Right, they was a lost opportunity there to pick three interesting ink studio colors. And then also there was like a fine nib or something like that, which while it may be great for daily writing, it may not be the best nib to explore and have fun with ink if that's what you want to do. So what they're doing here with this new release is that first of all, they made the pen look more interesting. It's not some pearlescent. It almost looks like those Kaweco Sport, the pearlescent one. So it looks very good. And then they put a footer nib on it, which of course is great for playing with ink. And Sailor has had this footer nib for a while now, but the pens they've had had the pens with this footer nib have been really boring. There was this black Prophet Junior, and then it was a really weird, like long, slender, long pen. Like neither was particularly appealing. Like
Wait. I have something to say about that long pen though, right? Because the Fude nib was, I believe, invented by Ishmael-san,
right.
and the Sailor Fude nibs they were just targeted to customers that look like Ishmael-san.
Yeah, that may be it. It doesn't look particularly appealing. I think we can agree on that. So what they've done here is that they're taking a Prophet Junior. They have spiced up the actual pen with this like pearlescent barrel, and then they put a footer nib on it. And on top of that, they have made a set with a Urameku ink, so one of those chroma shading inks, and it's quite affordable. And I think this is exactly what Sailor should be doing. I mean, this is the gateway drug to the ink world. This is perfect.
Yeah, I think the way that they did it is quite smart. I think this will reach exactly what we talked about in the New Year's episode, right? Like the people who want to play with inks but don't
Yeah,
necessarily or aren't necessarily married to a fountain pen culture. What do you do to reach out to those people? I mean, Sailor's not getting into the glass nibs like game, right? So they want to to attract new customers and then maybe evolve them, or let's say elevate them upstream through their product lineups until one day maybe they buy a King of Pen. But how do you build that funnel? And I think this is a good, first step, baby steps into creating that funnel, which will undoubtedly be a multi-year um, exercise.
Mm. And this is Sailor again. Well, this is Sailor doing something actually interesting on the low end, which we talked about how they have had like no low end offerings, like no affordable pens that have been particularly interesting for a long time. Right, that's been their weakest point. But here is you have it's actually a low end or an affordable pen that you may actually want to buy that you can put in the store too.
Mm. Well, I think they had some, but they were always limited to events. So I'm talking about the build your own pen like they have in Ancora, right? You have to go to the store, but it wasn't easily accessible as in, you could just click a button and have it pop into your mailbox. So yeah, I think this is good. And I like what they're doing. But I don't like what they're doing about the Valio.
Yeah, you have to explain what a drama is about there.
All right, so last year, I think 4 or 5 months ago, we talked about this new release. They have this pen where, you know, it's a semi-translucent acrylic, and they turned the pen rather than injection mold it. It's like, back then it was a combination of veil and Idol, so like Veilio. And just on the price, I kind of assumed that it was a full-size pen, 58K. So that's more expensive than a Shishikura full-size pen with a um metal section,
Mm.
right? So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's very expensive. And then on the English language websites and the English language stores started to pop up, and it said this pen it had the large nib, 21 karat. So most people assumed that it was a full-size pen.
Mm.
And then I read this drama on both Slack and Facebook, that somebody had bought it, and they said that the moment they held it, they knew it was smaller. And then they made a comparison between between the full size and the slim size and the Valio. And it turns out that the Valio has a 21 karat gold nib in the slim size, but the body of the pen is longer than the slim size.
Mm.
So it's uh it's a challenging time, I think, or it's a challenging situation for Sailor because I think on the Japanese websites it said the slim version, but when they write this, it's always in the fine print.
Yeah, sure, but it's not like it's not a standard pro gear model anyway, right? It is. I mean, it's a little bit like those like Nagasawa's like special form factors, right? So it's not exactly a pro gear, but they have a standard way of describing the nibs. They have this was it Chugata Ogata, right? And so they use those terms on a Japanese marketing copy on the Japanese product page. So on the Japanese page, they made it clear that it was the quote unquote medium sized, or what we call the small here, 21K nibs, right?
Yeah, but I still think I mean, that was in the spec sheets, right? Like it wasn't like, be careful, this is the slim size nib, not the full size nib.
Yeah, but I mean, why do they need to put that in the header?
Oh, they don't. They don't need to. They don't need to. But what I'm saying is that many people will see 21 karat. They might not go into the spec sheet, and it's easily, as a consumer, I think it would be easily lost. you might not realize. And whose responsibility is it? It's the consumer's responsibility. However, that doesn't mean that Sailor made it easy for that information, or clear that that information was there, unless you're, nerds like us.
Yeah, but I still think that this is not, again, this is not a pro gear, a standard pro gear. This is a different thing. So I mean, they would have to say this is similar to pro gear slim, but the actual it's actually slightly longer, right? I think on a Japanese page they have done enough to describe what it is. But as far as I understand, the real problem here is not the marketing copy in Japanese, but rather the English version. And I don't know if that is Sailor proper or if that is like Itoya that has screwed up. But somewhere something was lost in translation there, right? When the English version of that product page was made.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Sailor gave the U.S. market the wrong information, and um, before we go on to what I want to say about how they reacted or how they should react, um, I think that them not making it in a standard Pro Gear shape, like size, because the shape is the standard Pro Gear shape. If you look at the pen, it looks like a Pro Gear, but it's just the cap and the body are slightly longer than the slim and slightly shorter than the full size. And I think that's weird. I think that's weird that they made this strange in between size, and the hardware that they use, except for the cap band, is exactly the same as the other ones. But why did they do that?
Yeah, I don't know what the reason maybe, but I don't. I mean, I don't think that there is some kind of devious plan here to like fool the customers by making something slightly different. They might.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
I
so
agree.
I don't think there's any problem with that. And Sailor has a history of making all kinds of form factors. Again, I go back to this Nagasawa pen that looks slightly different as well, and all of these pens with urushi that they make now. So I don't think that's a problem. And also, I wonder how many people actually know or care about the nibs. I can imagine a lot of people buy these and don't even know what we're talking about, because also one thing that people might not realize is that we talk about the Sailor's small nibs and Sailor's large nibs, and uh, it's not the same thing as like a Jovo number 5 and Jovo number 6, where the difference is quite stark when you put them side by side. The difference between Sailor's so-called small nib and large nib, it's more subtle than I think most people realize. That they look almost the same side by side. I can put a photo in the show notes, but there's not a big difference.
No, it's definitely hard to see in pictures. If you see it in real life, it's more of a difference. But I think going back to when Plus invested in Sailor, and remember they had the lineup cleanup. One of the reasons why they discontinued many of the pens, like the Promenade and the whatevers, the Sigmas, was because they had too many pens that were essentially the same pen, but just slightly like different specs.
Yeah.
And I feel like adding this middle size, it's kind of going back to the days of Sailor where they were, losing money because they were doing all sorts of stuff in different non-standard ways. Like, to me, this is like a new Sigma.
Yeah, but from Sailor's perspective, what is different now is that previously they were probably stretched thin because their manufacturing capability was very limited. One of the stated goals of this new Kure headquarter, new factory that we talked about, is that now they have much better capability to produce all kinds of models and produce them at a higher volume. Now, from a customer's perspective, that doesn't really matter, right? You still have a bewildering number of pens, but from Sailor's perspective, they now have a capability to do this in a way that wouldn't strain them in the same way it did before.
I think that's fair, and I think you make a good point. Um, I think what's going to be really interesting is, will they make more pens in this shape, or is this just going to be a one-off shape to the Valio?
Yeah, I can imagine that because this is some kind of limited edition, right? Maybe they will do something like this every few years or maybe every year or something like that.
So, anyways, enough about this shape thing. Um, if if this were Pilot, I think they would have recalled the pen for anybody who wanted a refund.
Yeah, it's possible. Well, but also for pilots, and it's just one big organization, and I don't think it's conceivable, but it's less likely that something will get lost in translation like this with distributors, different organizations, and so
Yeah.
on.
Um, I think the response to this was they just posted on their Instagram, said, "Oops, sorry, we made a mistake." No statement, no press release about this, no real accountability to the. I think that's really the bigger problem when it comes to this misprint. I mean, for the Japanese consumers, entirely, that's up to Japan. But they gave retailers the wrong information here, right? And the retailers purchased their inventory on the assumption that it would be the larger size nib. Um, the customer who buys the larger size nib is not the same as the customer who buys the smaller size nib. And I think it puts the retailers in a really difficult position where they've, got this inventory. It's not a cheap pen, right? It's almost 60,000 yen. And that's you could buy, three slim size regular pens with that. You can buy a slim size pen, send that to Hiroko, and have, just maybe pay like a little bit more for that. So I feel like this puts the customers in a really difficult position. Um, and maybe Sailor's not in a position, not in a financial position to do those recalls, but um, I think the response from Sailor is a little bit lackluster.
Yeah, I agree that if you buy this pen from a retailer and if the retailer's product page says this has a large sailor nib and you receive a pen that does not have a large sailor nib, then you're not getting what you paid for, right? So then you should be able to return that to your retailer and for sure.
Yeah, and the retailer should be able to return it to Sailor.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's see. Obviously we are not in those conversations. We don't own a store to know what that situation is like. But maybe we'll get some DMs and hear about it.
I'm sure it will.
All right. Uh, Maybe moving on a little bit, we've always done these previews of the Marzin Pen Fair or World Pen Fair, I think it's officially called. But that's actually happening today. So in about an hour or so, I'll be seeing you in real life. But this year they came out with several different models. Um, I really only want to talk about three things. One, there's no there's no Sailor release, right? It's the lemon from the past.
Yeah, it's not clear to me if that is a re-release in the sense that they made more of them, or if this
It is not a re-release. I asked.
they just emptying out the existing inventory.
Yeah. And I think it's weird then to have it on the flyer, but anyways, that's what it is. Um and then for me the more interesting things are the custom urushi and the nakaya. So with the custom urushi, what's interesting about that is that Maruzen in the past they've rotated years or alternated years. You'd had one year with the custom urushi and then the next year with the vest type.
Well, to be fair, they haven't done this. I mean, you made it sound like a long tradition. We're only talking about like 2-3 years here, right?
But it's like 6 years, right? So they did two vest types. They did the botan, and then they did the blue, and then they did the green, and then they did the custom Ushin green.
Yeah. So the first customer issue was the blue one, right?
Yeah. So the previous year before that they did the botan of the vest, and then they did the blue custom Urushi, and then they did the green of the vest, and then they did the green custom Urushi.
Yeah. So it's been going on for a few years, but yeah, it's not like a long-standing Maruzen tradition. Yeah, sure.
No. It's not been going back like 10 years, but in the recent years, that seems to be what they had been doing. And then this year they came out with the custom ruche again, which I think surprised a lot of people. At least it surprised me because I would expect that they would do a different model. But they did this in candle wax red. And there are, I believe, already two red custom urushis. There's the red one, and then there's the vermilion from the Tokyo Quill shop.
No, but that's not that's custom 845.
Oh, that's custom made for five. Okay. Then that makes more sense. So there's the standard model, and then this candle wax red. From the pictures, it looks almost exactly the same as the standard model, but I'm told that there's going to be a slight difference.
It's a strange choice. I agree for that reason, but I'm sure it's already sold
It
out.
is.
Yeah. So
It
of
is.
course
It
it
is.
is. So I'll do. I happen to have a vermilion or like a red 845. Sorry, custom Urushi here. So I'll do a side by side comparison photo once I have this one.
Excellent.
But yeah, I would have loved to see it in like purple or whatever, but maybe we'll have to wait a few years for that.
And I went to Marzén a few days ago, and they had all of the show models out, in anticipation for the show, except the custom Rushi, which is the only one that I really wanted to see. And and they said, "Oh, we can't display it because it's been sold out by pre-orders." And I said, "Yeah, I pre-ordered it. I like, please just show me what it looks like." But they held strong.
Does that mean they don't have any like store? I'm not sure what the industry term is.
No, they have no display. No, have no display model. So, they held strong, but in about an hour or so, we'll be able to see what that looks like. The new ink that they have, which I think is a callback to the Kirin, which dries a different color. I think we talked a little bit about that already. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun event. It's not really a pen show, but it'll be a fun event. And it'll be good to see everybody.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's always. I mean, before Tokyo Pen Show, this was sort of the main event of the year, or rather, like there was this 2 weeks where so you had Maruzen and then you had the old Mikoshi Fair, right? So those 2 weeks were sort of the peak of the pen year.
And then now you have the Stationary Stars, whatever they're called, terrible name, store that's hosting, or it's kind of taken the place of that Mitsukoshi Pen Fair, but in a different flavor. So, much more.
Are they doing anything this year?
They
Because
are.
last year they announced some event like to compete with Maruzen as they always did in the past, right? Is that the case this year?
So I think the dates are a little bit different. But they are doing something this year. Let's see. It is. Uh, I'm just checking the dates here. Um, it's from the 15th to the 4th. So in 2 weeks. So they've moved it out 2 weeks now, so not directly in competition. But what I find really interesting is that um, I think Maruzen, they just have the same people come every year, right? Ohashido, uh, some wood turners, Hirai, and that's it. But Stationary Stars, I think they're a little bit more interesting in that sense because they're actually getting um, people who are really I don't want to say like I don't want to say like you know uh, hyped up right now, but they're trendy, right? So you still have these wooden pens, and the first ones they release are these wooden pens. So that they have Toyoka Craft. Um, They have they have Lorets, which I think is really interesting. They have some accessory brands, but the ones that I want to talk about is they have Ken Ken, so they have the the Ink Advisor Ken,
He's everywhere. He's always at any event that has any kind of ink theme to it. He's there.
But they also have Nagahara-san,
Oh, that's a good idea.
and they have Kyomaru, so they have Drillog. I just think it's interesting that Nagahara-san is choosing then to go to stationary stars rather than Maruzen, because Maruzen usually they had somebody from Pilot or from Platinum, and it's more like industry, like really corporate kind of style relationship, whereas Mitsukoshi and Stationary Stars, they feel like they're more open to, looking at the community, looking at people who are popular and in demand rather than, focus strictly on that relationship um with the manufacturer.
It's a little bit similar to those Tono and Limbs events where there's certain people that go to all these Tono and Limbs events. You have Ken again, you have Drillog, you have various ink manufacturers. That's sort of a different type of events, but yeah, you have the same ones over and over. But there's definitely an audience for that.
Yeah, and I mean, apparently that audience is us because we go every year.
Yeah.
But but I think it's good because in the past, Mitsukoshi and Maruzen, they didn't really feel like they had different personalities.
Mm.
You had, Ebuya going.
And that may have been also partially why the Mitsukoshi one wasn't really as successful. It was sort of another Maruzen event 1 week after Maruzen where everyone had already spent their money. Right?
Exactly. But I think this is actually good for that very particular scene. And it's good that they spaced out this year so that it would be even better if it was in April.
Yeah. So just one criticism of the Maruzen's event, and this is something that Alessa has mentioned several times, which I think is true, is that all of the pens sold at these Maruzen events, they're quite expensive. I'm looking at the lineup now, and the cheapest one you can get is the Eboya for 52,000 yen. Right? And then it just goes up to hundreds of thousands of yen, which, I mean, that's probably right for that audience. But if you just, getting into fountain pens, this is not an event for you.
Yeah, yeah. And the other pen that I said that I wanted to mention is this Nakaya pen in Piccolo, and they have the Maruzen Owl
Mm.
as a roll stop. I think that is an adorable pen. And apparently many people agreed with me, so they are producing more, I think, to be released at the end of the year.
This is a bit of a standard formula from Naka. I mean, I agree it looks nice, but this whole idea of like a piccolo and different kinds of roll stoppers, they have done this a few times now.
Yeah, but I think this particular one is a knockout. It's more simple than the ones that they've done before. They've done some like crazy Makie ones for Maruzen. This one is simple, but the roll stop is symbolic. It's meaningful. You know, I would love to see a Kirin one, for example, to represent the Nihonbashi Kirins. But the owl is very symbolic to Maruzen, and I like the story behind that pen. I think it's really special.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and I think that's really all that we have for today. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna have more to say after we go out to the show, but we'll save that
Yeah.
for next time. And maybe we'll get the other two on the podcast as well.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Then, with that being said, thank you everybody who is still listening to us ramble for, an hour now. I'm sure you're all very, very excited about our discussion about flight prices. But if you made it past that, congratulations, you got rewarded with some Marzan talk. Um, my name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm food fan on Instagram and elsewhere.
All right. Thanks very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.